Hi, it's Robin Steinberg here, and I would like to invite you to join me in a conversation. Many of us are looking to social media as our way to connect. Some of us are at home alone, some of us have pets, or perhaps too much, too close family structures that are needing attention, needing our guidance. But what I wanted to talk to you about and would love to hear from you regarding is some of how you are using this time. It's in the midst of everything that's going on, this is a gift of time of your life, of my life. And it can be something for us to get through or something for us to use with intention, with awareness, or even simply just to be noticing, because these are still the moments of our lives. And that's not something that I'm going to take lightly. Recently, one of my mentors was actually very much dealing with, or talking about rather, how he's smack dab up against what would you be doing, what would be important to you in your life if you only had 30 days to live. It's something that he's worked with and taught for decades, actually. But this quarantine time, this shelter in place time, this coronavirus opportunity, and I'm choosing it to say that lightly, knowing that this is certainly not an easy thing for us. It's shaking up the very way of being, and it is deadly for many people. It's extremely contagious. And yet it's also providing an opportunity for us to reset, to reevaluate. None of us knows where this is going or how it will play out. We're in completely unknown waters, and the truth is that we are all here equally. It's a bit of a leveling of the playing field, because no matter what your resources, no matter where you are in your life, it's a hard reset. So some of the things that I wanted to touch base with you and ask how you're using this time and what's going on in your life, share a little bit about what my experience is, and perhaps open a bigger conversation and a dialogue. Love for it to be here in this thread, but it doesn't need to be. If you'd like to message me, feel free. If it's something that is simply seeds for you to work through and work with and hold lightly, journal, contemplate, meditate, do what you need to with it. Open up the dialogue with people that are close to you. There are lots of ways to reach out and to use this time. It is a bit of a time of contraction, but at the same time, it's a chance to connect in new ways. And we're at a place that, we get to evaluate what it is that we want to give our attention to give our energy to create. I don't mean that simply in a woo-woo, the world around me is going to match my vision board sort of a creation, but it is the same principles. This is a time where our attention and intention are very powerful. And what it is that we focus on, we're giving our energy to. I don't mean that in an abstract way, but in very concrete, very practical, very personal terms. So I invite you to notice. It's a judgment-free zone, so you don't get to judge yourself about it either. But this is your time. This is our time together. And I don't mean that in an abstract way. So some of the things that I wrote down, some notes and things I want to discuss, are how are you using this time? Is it time for personal development, for connecting, for simply pausing and reevaluating what's important to you? I'm doing that. I'm using this time to do some guided meditations and to focus on myself, but as a foundation for how I can be of service. This is what I've been preparing for most of my life. And I certainly don't feel ready, but the time is now, and I don't get to push pause and say, hang on a minute, I've still got work to do that I've pushed off. I am not pretending to say I've got the answers, but I am showing up with you, wanting to work on what we can. Another one of my mentors has very much been working with us about we can't do anything about the future. We can't do anything about the past. It informs us, but we get to interpret and apply if it applies, or set to the side and say, thank you very much. That's been very useful and gotten me to where I am. And yet is not going to dictate the circumstances of what I'm using forward. So I muddied that a little bit, but the truth is that can't do anything about what's gone before us except for learn from it, figure out if it applies or if it doesn't, if it's been holding us in place, if it's perhaps misguided or, well, whatever, it's gotten us to where we are. So I say thank you. And yet, thank you very much. Nevertheless, I'm choosing to move forward and evaluate everything going on in my life. I can't create into the future. I cannot decide what the future will be, but I can focus on my present, and I encourage you to do the same. Now, there's a bunch of it that I really can't influence directly, things that are happening, I'll say, beyond my control. But of that, say, 20% or so that's the present, there's 8% that I can absolutely control. Now, if I choose not to, if I simply go through the motions repeating what I've done in that, running that program of patterns, then I'm recreating where I've been. But I'm choosing to use this time to expand what's possible, to really connect with, well, I'm going to say it, my own power of creativity, of creation, my own power. It scares me. If you've touched any of your own power and possibility before, you may know what I'm talking about in this. It's not generally a fear of failure, but a fear of our actual success that keeps us from moving forward. And I feel that feeling like I've been very creative before, but it wasn't intended consequences. So I don't know how to open my view enough and be very specific in how I focus my energy. But I do know that over the years I've developed a trust in my own ability to adapt, to deal with whatever it is that comes up. So I'm going to give that a little bit more of my attention as I step forward into this big unknown space and know that I'm not alone and that I have the power to adapt, to be responsive and resilient, and I'll deal with whatever comes up. There are action steps that I'm taking, not simply that reflective, meditative space, but literally steps of contacting creditors, for instance, of making a list of what my cash flow situation has been, of a list of unfinished projects, I'll call them open cycles, that I've wanted to work on and haven't completed. I'm mindfully bringing my energy together to a place where I can focus it and expand my capacity without it depleting me. So this may seem a little bit abstract, but really the question is, how are you using this time? Are you using it to simply get through it? Are you using it to Learn a new skill. Are you using it to connect with people? Perhaps you're simply growing fruits and vegetables to feed your family, or noticing there are areas in your life that need your attention. Well, I'm going to speak it out now. My dog Karma is about to make some noise here, so be very careful when you name an animal in your life Karma. You're bringing in both the good karma and the not so good karma. I'm not going to say bad karma because, yeah, she's working on her world too. Not in the same way I am, and I get to help guide her through it. So this is a time for us to have this conversation. I'm realizing it's gone on for a while, but there are some tools of connection. Connection with yourself, connection with others in your immediate relationships, and connections beyond, because this is indeed impacting us globally. Humankind is at a shift point. I don't know that there's any natural disaster that would have brought us together in the same way. In relative terms, this virus doesn't necessarily seem to be as deadly as several that we've dealt with in the past, but it's incredibly contagious. And it's incredibly shown us how connected we really are, because it's gone from being based in one little area in China to everywhere. I don't know if there's anywhere that hasn't been touched by this. Possibly the space shuttle, but I doubt it. Well, the space station, I don't think the space shuttle is functioning anymore. But the reality is, with some mindful attention, we can direct our energies, because we are connected, whether we know it or like it or not. So I'm going to ask you here, what are you working on? Is there something I can support you in? Is there something I can simply hold space for you, knowing that you are doing what you need to for your world? Is there something that you can offer to us as a community? What is it you bring to the table? It's probably something that you naturally live and breathe in. If you're a fish, water is your element. So what I'm looking for and asking about is, what is it that you can bring to the table to help us as a community, to help others, that you take for granted in your life? Or perhaps it's something that you've been working very hard to develop. You may not be where you want to be, but share that process. Would love to hear. And I'm going to ask you, what is it you need? What do you need from me? What is it you need from us? How can we support you right where you are? I've been noticing a lot of my friends, authors sharing their works, musicians sharing their work, digital entrepreneurs sharing their products, businesses doing what they can to support and help the community and each other. We're recognizing that this really is a global community. But where is it right now, right here, where you, that's right, you, and I realize I've got 3 fingers pointing back at me, where is it that you and I can add to our common experience here? So thanks for your time. This is not a short video. It wasn't intended to be so long. But let me know. I truly want to hear. And I'd love to share that conversation with you in a bigger way.